Hi everyone, I'm Anne.
I'm Alex.
And we're here today with Science Updates with Anne and Alex. Today is Friday, February 28th, and you might notice that the video looks a little bit different. And that's because for the other videos so far, I was traveling, so we were talking over Zoom. But now I'm home, so we're talking to you from our kitchen.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So a lot has happened at the NIH this week, and today was no different. So we were able to learn quite a lot, by reading a really interesting article in Atlantic that was written by Catherine Wu. I actually don't have a subscription to The Atlantic. It was gifted to me by my colleague Sam Wang, so thanks for that, Sam. And if you don't have a copy of it, see if you can find a way to get one from a friend or maybe go to the library. It's a really interesting article. And she really explained a lot about what's happening in a way that makes a lot of what we've been talking about make more sense. So according to her explanation, the people at the NIH, for example, the program officers and the scientific review officers, are really kind of like stuck in the middle. Because on the one hand, the lawyers from NIH are saying, look, we can proceed with reviewing grants as we always do. On the other hand, Health and Human Services, who oversees NIH, they're saying, no, we have a pause right now. So right now, the acting director of the NIH is Mamoli, Dr. Mamoli, and he is the one who's sort of navigating between Health and Human Services and NIH. And this has meant that the people who are in the middle are getting really mixed messages about whether they should freeze or unfreeze. So they're trying to figure out what to do. They don't want to get in trouble for disobeying the wrong person. They want to fund the grants. They want to have the review committees, but it's really challenging to find a way to make that happen. So I think, Alex, you're going to talk a little bit more about what we've learned about study sections today.
Yeah, I think sort of in line with the article in The Atlantic, it's pretty clear there's not a singular policy and a singular interpretation of what can be done and what can't be done. So we're pretty confident that some study sections are happening, and we're also pretty confident that some study sections are still being canceled. I can speak from personal experience that on the same day, I learned that a study section I'd been appointed to was still moving forward, although no longer in person. It's moved to virtual format. And also that one of my grants that's under consideration, the study section for that was canceled, and that was all on the same day. So I think there's a fair amount of inconsistency there. And, I also just have to reiterate the fact that the study sections score the grants, and that's a really important part of the process. But the advisory councils, which meet later, are the ones that start moving the well-scored grants towards funding. And those advisory councils, so far as we know, have not been scheduled or rescheduled. So there is a potential big backlog. And it's not just that there will be a lot of grants to process. Of course, if your grant is fortunate enough to go through study section and you get a great score, if there's no advisory council, all you can do is print out that score and frame it on your wall. It's not going to pay your staff or your per diem. So this study section thing is very salient to all of us. But the advisory councils, I think, are the next big thing to watch.
Yeah, and the timing is really critical here because the money for this fiscal year has already been allotted, right? There's already been a certain amount of money that's been allotted for the NIH to use to award grants. But if we wait too long and if council doesn't meet, then that money will kind of expire. And even folks whose grants were really well reviewed might not get any funding. So we really want to see another council get on the register. I think I don't know when this will be resolved because the major challenge is that there are still executive orders coming down that are sort of changing the landscape. So the original executive order had to do with gender and DEI. There was another executive order that came down on Wednesday that was focused on different things having to do with efficiency related to DOGE, efficiency related to non-essential travel and use of credit cards and so on. That's a new executive order, so we don't really know how those policies are going to affect the unfolding landscape at the NIH. So still a lot remains to be seen.
True.
Okay, in other news, something we haven't talked about yet in our updates is the fact that many folks at NIH have lost their jobs. There were many folks who were laid off because they had not been at NIH for very long, less than 2 years. And there are many additional scientists whose jobs are at risk. Folks who are on a 4-year renewing contract, many of them have been told that they are not going to be renewed at the end of that term. And that means when their 4 years is up, rather than being renewed, which is what normally happens, their positions won't continue. And I was really disheartened to hear this. I think, for me, I am supportive of the NIH really coming from three different angles. So first of all, as all of you know, I'm a biomedical researcher, and so I know firsthand what the research that the NIH funds, and I've seen that in my own lab and in my colleagues' labs, and also in the intramural program at the NIH, where the scientists are at risk. So that's kind of my first connection to the NIH. My second connection is that I previously served on the advisory committee to the NIH director when Francis Collins was the NIH director. And through that role, I got to really get a sense of the scope of what NIH is doing, all the way from looking for cures for childhood diseases to treatments for neurodegeneration to thinking about how artificial intelligence will play a role in healthcare in the coming years. And I really learned so much about what NIH is doing, and led me to really have a deep appreciation for everything that NIH does for the health of Americans. And finally, the final reason why I feel like this is touching me very strongly is that I'm also a cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2023. And the treatments that I received and continue to receive are treatments that benefited from fundamental research, much of which was funded by the NIH. Fundamental research into cell proliferation, DNA replication, and repair. That kind of research was critical for teaching us how cancer works. And then once scientists understood the mechanisms of cancer and what happens, they were able to come up with treatments, many of which are super effective. I benefited hugely from those treatments for cancer that came first from fundamental research and then later from clinical research and finally clinical trials. So for those three reasons, I know how important the NIH is, and their mission to preserve and improve the health of all Americans is something that means a lot to me. And so I'm hoping beyond hope that some of these issues will be resolved and the research will be able to continue.
Strong agree.
Well, I think we'll stop there. So this is the last day of February, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, leave your questions in the comments and let us know what you're thinking about, and maybe we can comment or have some ideas or raise it up for discussion. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.